A message from the Florida Education Association. Great public schools are a basic right for every student.
Talk health. Talk wealth. Talk politics. Talk 1470. WNN.
Learning shouldn't stop when the school bell rings. As a parent, you're a key component to your child's education team and the key to making sure that learning never stops. I'm Andy Ford, president of the Florida Education Association. Here are a few things you can do at home to help make education and learning a priority. Talk to your child about school every day. Take your child on family outings to parks, community festivals, and local landmarks. Encourage your child to count money, calculate change, read menus, read newspapers, and write letters. Talk to your child about your family, the holidays you celebrate, and the foods you eat. Learning doesn't stop when your child gets home from school. It's just the beginning. Working together, parents and teachers can make this a successful school year for every student in Florida.
A message from the Florida Education Association. Great public schools are a basic right for every student.
Talk 1470. WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Kids have the craziest ideas about food. Where do they get this stuff? Like eating Brussels sprouts helps you hit home runs. And eating carrots gives you X-ray vision. It's nuts. And I honestly have no idea where my daughter got this notion that broccoli is the official food of professional ballerinas. Kids, the only reason my 4-year-old loves cantaloupe is because he's convinced it comes from the moon.
One small step for man, lots of potassium for mankind.
And the other day when my oldest came up to me and said, "Mom, will eating peas and carrots really help me pull off a fakey frontside ollie with a twist?" I look him in the eye and say, "It can't hurt, honey. It can't hurt."
Moms everywhere are finding creative ways to help their kids eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Michael Blum. Join me on Mondays from 9 to 11 p.m. on WNN for the Michael Blum Show, where we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex, substance abuse, spirituality, and politics. Think, speak, and be heard. Join us on the Michael Blum Show.
The war had been going on for 2 years, and I got the calling. I got the calling to join the service and support the boys over there.
Thousands of American troops have come home from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, suffering the effects of post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injuries.
I never thought that I would have PTSD. I thought that I had enough coping skills.
I don't think anybody who goes into combat could ever honestly say that they're not different when they come home.
What you take as a simple thing is not so simple for me anymore.
I'm going to have my good days and my bad days, and I really don't like those bad days.
I would say to those people that are out there, don't brush us aside and don't count us out.
Help the USO support these troops and their families. Hear more of their stories at usoinvisiblewounds.org. The wounds are invisible. The stories are real.
Gallbladder problems, gingivitis, a bad back, indigestion, fatigue, low libido, not sleeping well, need to lose weight. Just some of the topics you'll hear about. Hi, I'm Dr. Bob Martin. Join me Sunday mornings at 10 on Talk 1470 WNN.
This is Talk 1470. Talk 1470. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show, the place to fine-tune your swing, dress for the course, club, or cruise, and get tips on the best places to play and stay at the right price. Vacation or staycation, host Dan Shub, along with his expert co-hosts and guests, will tell you where to go. To play golf and vacation, that is. Now, here's Dan.
Welcome. Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show. I'm your host,
Dan Schub, and tonight, like we usually do, we're going to talk golf, we're going to talk travel, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We usually try and follow more of a format where we talk golf to start out and then move into travel, but today we're maybe going to deviate a little bit. We have a great show, of course, as always. We have an excellent guest that we'll be chatting with a little bit later on in the show, a fellow by the name of Jean-Luc Annette, and he is the president of ECBC Luggage. It's a line of luggage that is modern and durable and designed to work easily with the TSA and all of their restrictions, which, of course, these days are very important and ramped up a little bit. So make your life easier has made my life easier. I've been giving it a try, so I wanted to share that with everybody. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, a little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about my latest trip, which was to the city of Baltimore, and a place I hadn't been to in a long time, and the publicity typically from Baltimore has been more negative than positive, but there were some really cool things that I remembered about Baltimore that I wanted to check out. So I kind of got an opportunity to do a little bit of that, and as always, there's good, there's bad, there's ugly, and I share it all with you so that you can follow up on the good stuff I do and learn from the mistakes so that they don't happen to you as well. But let's kick it off a little bit with more on the travel front to just get things started. And first of all, of course, I wanted to give my sympathies to the people of Brussels. What can you say? Travel is getting more and more difficult. The world is a bit of a crazy place, and certainly nobody wants terrorists to stop us from doing what we typically do and alter the course of our lives. However, there have been, some serious issues as far as safety, and some people who decide that they would prefer perhaps to stay away from a hotbed of activity. I understand that as well. The State Department actually did this week issue a Europe travel alert, and this is for all of Europe, and they were just advising U.S. citizens to avoid crowded places, exercise vigilance when they're in public places or using mass transportation, and use particular caution, especially during the religious holidays like we're experiencing, right now. So the U.S. government does not, or the State Department does not typically say things like that, and they certainly don't want to hurt our allies, and they obviously have the best interests of the safety of the U.S. citizens at heart. So we have to take these warnings and make our decisions is what we're going to do. Personally, my daughter, she's planning a trip to Europe in the not too distant future, and I don't know how I feel about that, or I haven't even spoken to her. She doesn't take the news that seriously, so it wouldn't surprise me if she'd have no problem going anywhere in Europe. My suggestion and my advice is besides listening to your own conscience, is to, perhaps think about other places too. There are many places that are not such a hotbed as it seems that perhaps Paris and Brussels are right now. There's plenty of places in the world and plenty of places in Europe that perhaps are safer that you also may want to check out. And there are deals, everywhere. The good news is the TSA is beefing up security here in our country as well, because obviously you got to travel here and you got to travel from here even to get to Europe. So that's, also pretty cool. I can say that, excuse me, my time in Baltimore, that is obviously in the Washington, D.C. area, and there was amped up security there. But I have to give it to the TSA and the airport in Baltimore in particular that they did a really good job. It did not hold us up at all. And, we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show when we talk about my special suitcase that is a help, too. But as I mentioned, there are so many places to go right now in this world, and places, going to Paris or going to Belgium, perhaps you postpone for another time and think about something else. One place that, who would have thought that would have been easier to go to perhaps, that I've been talking about a lot lately is Cuba. And Cuba, there's obviously been in the news. The president has visited there, or Tampa got to play the Cuban national team this past week. There's a lot of activity going on every front. Hotel companies like Starwood Hotels, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, they've reached agreements to operate 2 different Cuba hotels by the end of this year. So they will be the first U.S. company to do that. And I thought that was quite cool. And speaking of Starwood, we actually have also been they've been in the news quite a bit as well, as it seemed that they were a takeover target, and a bidding war seems to have broken out. And every week when I talk about them, it seems somebody else is buying them, which is kind of odd. But, these things are never official until they're official. And what seems to be over is, well, I guess what do they say? It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And it didn't happen. So Marriott International, first they had agreed to purchase Starwood, and that was the deal. And then it seemed a Chinese company instead, by the name of Anbang Insurance Group, made a competing offer that was higher, and that was accepted. And then Marriott came back and made another offer, and now that is accepted. So there's other reasons for it. It's not just that they keep upping the dollars so that the shareholders are going to, be happy, and the board obviously has to act in the best interest of their shareholders. But there's more to the story, because getting the approval of the U.S. government could have been a lengthier process if they went with the Chinese group. Could have been a problem, could have been turned down, and it could have held things up a lot longer. The other issue, or the other thing that I'm kind of looking forward to, is I stay at Starwood Properties from time to time, but I stay at Marriott Properties much more frequently. And I do amass their points in the Marriott Frequent Traveler program. When they combine, which they are intending to do with Starwood, they are going to have a huge program with so many more properties and so many more opportunities that it's going to be extremely strong and really good for the travelers like myself and you. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. And, another interesting thing, we're talking a little bit about Cuba and about hotels and travel there. A story came out this past week about Airbnb. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Airbnb, but Airbnb is one of the largest suppliers of a platform for people to kind of share and rent housing. So these are private properties that could be, single family homes. It could be a room in somebody's home. It could be a condo or an apartment, and you could rent it short term for a couple of days, or, for a week or a month at a time or longer. And it seems that due to the shortage of hotels that we have spoken about in the past few weeks in Cuba, and the rapid rate of growth of people who are going to visit Cuba, Airbnb, I saw in the news where they were actually going door to door in neighborhoods to the Cuban folks and asking if they've got a room that they could rent out. And while personally it's not my cup of tea necessarily staying in somebody's home like that, it seems that obviously the people in Cuba are desiring to make a few extra bucks. They need the money. Their rates that they charge are extremely attractive, because, what seems to be not too much to us is quite a bit to them. And from what I understand, the experience of having an opportunity to live with a Cuban family where they will take you in as one of their own, basically, and cook for you and show you around and give you an opportunity to live like a local might live, is something that many people may truly enjoy. I've used Airbnb once or twice before. I've used a few of their competitors as well. There's a site called HomeAway that I've used many times. Oftentimes, depending upon where it is that I'm traveling to, many times when I travel, like I just did to Baltimore, I travel with an associate of mine, and we get our own rooms. And, if it's a little bit pricey to get one of those rooms, oftentimes it's considerably less money to rent a 2-bedroom condo or even a bigger house. And we can kind of spread out and, enjoy, have a living room, have a dining room, have a balcony. So these sharing sites are something that if you haven't checked them out yet, you might want to. And, it's definitely something that I would recommend. Now, let's see. I also, for later on in the show, I got a couple of deals for you and some things that are going on. And I don't know if we're going to have that much time later in the show. So an event that I think I briefly mentioned, maybe a few months back, and it's coming up a little bit sooner, and I wanted to say something again. It's the Key West Songwriters Festival. And it's produced by the actual writers and the BMI, the folks that represent the writers. And it's they sent to me some key facts, that like the top 10 facts that you might want to know, and that really explains the whole thing. And it just sounds like a really cool event. So I figured I'd give you their top 10 before we have to go to our first break. So here you go. It's the date is May 4th to the 8th, so you still have a little bit of time. 5 whole days of well-crafted songwriting on Key West, of course. Most of the shows during the festival are completely free, including over 50 in-the-round sessions with multiple writers, a kickoff concert featuring Rhett Atkins, and a free Jake Owen show in the heart of Duval Street. Top-tier writers and Grammy nominees such as Robert Earl Keen, Sean Camp, Natalie Hemby, Liz Rose, and Laurie McKenna will be performing. This festival puts you very, very close. There's more than 200 songwriters performing, so you can hear folks from your past as well as new ones. All of the proceeds benefit the BMI Foundation, a nonprofit, so that's pretty cool. You can catch as much music as you want. Shows started around noon and go till about 2 a.m. or later, which is pretty cool. And Key West, of course, is the home to many restaurants, bars, hotels, which is extremely fun. The schedule has been released. You can check it out at KeyWestSongwritersFestival.com. Key West is known for its history, of course, Hemingway, Williams, and Frost, as well as a lot of songwriters and people, of course, like Jimmy Buffett and Shel Silverstein. And they're saying that it's starting to fill up. So if you do want to get a room, you may want to check it out right now. So, again, go to KeyWestSongwritersFestival.com. I hear it's a lot of fun. You'll probably enjoy it. And, what we're going to do is we're going to take our first break, and we will be back in just a moment with more of the Golf and Travel Show. Stay tuned. And we are back in time for a quick message from our sponsor, Labor Finders. If your business needs industrial workers or if you're looking for work, you got to call Labor Finders because Labor Finders places for temporary or temporary to hire opportunities for skilled, semi-skilled, or general labor positions such as plumbers, electricians, concrete workers, forklift operators, office clerical workers, and much, much more. Labor Finders has almost 200 offices nationwide. Right here near Boca Raton, they have offices in Homestead, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Jupiter. So if you need legal, insured hard workers, or if you would like to work hard, call Labor Finders toll free at 800-864-7749. That's 800-864-7749, or just visit laborfinders.com. And we are back. And, as I said, I had a chance to go up to Baltimore, first time in a long time. And I used to go there more often. I remember taking my kids to the Inner Harbor, to the beautiful aquarium down there, and the ships that they had, some nice tall ships in the harbor. And personally, my favorite part about Baltimore, of course, is the food, That's wherever I go, I always like to sample the local foods, and every place has something that's really special, and I happen to, my favorite food happens to be seafood. So there really, there aren't too many places better to get seafood than Baltimore. So I was truly looking forward to having that opportunity. And I wanted to share some of that with you, some of the places that I got to eat at. And again, good, bad, and ugly, I think is the way it went down, for better or worse. But, my first stop was a place called Riley's Oyster, and Riley's Oyster, I think they have more than one location. I went to their Federal Hill location, which is a nice little part of town and, really cool. And for lunch, they had a special going on. Me and my buddy John, we like to eat the raw oysters. And on Mondays, this was Monday, all day long is oyster special, $1 an oyster, and they had a couple of different types for $1, and they were great. And I believe on Tuesday night during happy hour, they're also $1. And dollar oysters are hard to come by, especially ones that are good. So we enjoyed that, and it was your typical oyster bar. I had a shrimp wrap and some crab soup. That's another one of my favorites, the she crab soup in the Baltimore area. Excellent. So nice little lunch place. For dinner, we deviated and tried something different. And, a lot of these restaurants, I read up on, I use Yelp, usually very successfully. You got to kind of weigh the good, the bad, understand that you can't always believe anything or everything that you read, but you can kind of figure it out. And usually I'm successful that way. We decided to try some Spanish food at a Spanish restaurant. And, of course, you can get Spanish-prepared seafood in Maryland or Baltimore. And we went to a place that was highly rated called Tio Pepe. And this was downtown. It was right near the hotel that we happened to be staying at, which was the Embassy Suites downtown Inner Harbor, which was lovely. And so we took a nice walk, and the weather was cool, which was kind of interesting, coming out of Florida. It was chilly the first few days of the week. And I have to say that this place was very neat. You walk in off the street and you go downstairs, and all of the walls almost look like you're in a cave, and they've got lots of little rooms, and you almost could have felt like you were in Spain. And the waiters that worked there probably have been there for 30 or 40 years, and they had all sorts of finesse and flair the way they served tableside, and it was just very cool. And we got a pitcher of sangria with all the fruit and this beautiful ceramic pitcher, and it just had all the markings of a true Spanish meal. And I have to say that my meal here was excellent. I had a filet of sole that was prepared with a banana and a béarnaise sauce that was just wonderful. So, deviating from what we thought, the typical, Maryland crab oyster kind of experience, and trying something different like Spanish food, but still having the opportunity to sample the seafood, we thought was very, very cool. And so Tio Pepe, thumbs up, definitely recommended. The next evening, we decided to go back to more of an oyster bar kind of a place. And we chose a place that, again, was a neighborhood kind of place. I think it was also in the Federal Hill area where we had our first oyster bar lunch. And it was a place called LP Steamers. And, we looked at the menu. The prices were moderate. They had some great choices. And my buddy John, he got this huge seafood sampler. And just loved it. It had a lobster tail and mussels and oysters and clams and shrimp. And then he ordered 2 of the largest crabs that they had, with the hammer, and he's smashing his crab. He's just loving it. Well, I happen to be a fan of the soft-shell crab, so I got a couple of soft-shell crabs, and they brought them to me, and they were these 2 tiny little soft-shell crabs, and the guy apologized. He says, yeah, they're really little, so instead of the typical 1 big one, we gave you 2 little ones. Said, okay, ate it, seemed very happy. He loved his meal. I loved my meal. About 3 hours later, I was deathly ill with food poisoning. So you just never know, I guess, what's going to happen. And it just, there's no way it was anything other than that. It was obvious to me. So a really, really difficult experience. And now I'm sitting, near death, wondering if I'll eat another morsel of food in Baltimore. And that was obviously my goal, was to kind of go through the whole town. And what I'm going to have to do is I did end up sampling a little bit more on my way home in the airport. My buddy John, without me now, he went to Phillips in the Inner Harbor. And Phillips has always been my go-to place. That's where I would get my crab cakes years gone by, forever and ever and ever. And we had heard that maybe it's a little bit touristy, maybe it's not the best place to go. He went over there. He was pleasantly surprised. First of all, they had an oyster special, $5 for a half dozen, even less expensive than the $1 a piece. They had peel and eat shrimp. They had crab cakes. He ate all of it, loved it. He said the service was great. So Phillips at the Inner Harbor, it's still the right bet. But on the way home, we, at the airport, waiting for our flight, we stopped at Phillips at the airport. It was okay, but it was not the same. He had just, back to back sampled the 2, and I looked carefully at the bill, and I noticed, of course, that it's run by FMS, which is the company that runs a lot of the different stores and restaurants at many of the airports all over the country. So it's obviously a franchise or licensing agreement. And it was noticeable, the difference between the quality of the food. He ordered items that were the same items on the menu, and they were not prepared the same way. So here's an issue of quality control that sometimes, I suppose, with licensees or franchisees, it may not be the same as with company-owned locations when it comes to restaurants. So a little bit of something to understand. One other thing that I did get a chance to kind of sample, and I had wished that I had gotten to Baltimore a week or two later, perhaps, was Camden Yards. Now, Camden Yards, I guess, I don't know, it must be at this point maybe 20 some odd years old. And Camden Yards was one of the first newer ballparks where they started building them smaller. You know, after the Astrodomes and the Kingdomes where, you know, bigger was better and everything was cavernous and, you know, you were really far away from the field. They changed the whole concept whereby they wanted to bring everybody closer to the field and just have a whole different feeling of being part of the ball game instead of witnessing it from far away with binoculars. And lucky for us, I don't know why, but the gates were open and we were actually able to walk into the ballpark. And they had some kids that they were giving tours to, and the ground crews were out there getting the field ready for opening day, and it was pristine. I mean, every single blade of grass was like perfect. And, you know, we walked through their monuments in center field where, you know, they had Boog Powell and Brooks Robinson and Frank Robinson and, you know, all their stars out there. And I'm not an Oriole fan, but I'm a baseball fan. And it was just very cool. Of course, a statue for Babe Ruth, who was born right in that area, did not get to play because the Orioles, I don't believe, existed when he played. They came onto the scene a little bit later. I think the sign underneath it said that it was Babe's dream, and I'm assuming it was his dream to have a stadium or a team in his hometown of Baltimore, which they just did such a beautiful job with. So, and then by the time we were leaving, the weather started to warm up and the sun came out and it was spring and everything was in bloom, and it was pretty cool. So my advice is give Baltimore a chance. You know, the airport is a great airport. They've got inexpensive flights often from here on Southwest, which, by the way, again came through both ways. Didn't charge me for my luggage, didn't lose my luggage. My flights were on time in spite of some bad weather in certain parts of the country. They are like right on every single time. So I you know, every time I fly, anybody else, lately, I wish I was on Southwest, and every time I'm on Southwest, I'm grateful that I am. It just always seems to work out right with them. So kudos to Southwest Airlines for just always doing a great job. So that was my little trip to Baltimore. So I don't get to go to the Northeast other than New York as frequently as I would like to, and it's nice to visit. I would not give up living in Florida for anything. But it's nice to go back up north and see the different lifestyle. So, all right, what I want to do is usually up at the top of the show, we talk a little bit of golf, and I don't want to leave our golf fans totally out of it. So I do have a few golf stories that I can tell and some golf tales. Here's an interesting story that I stumbled on this past week. And this is a group that's really, really cool, based up in Buffalo, New York. And they are called Bunkers in Baghdad. And they have a brand new website. And like I say, it's nonprofit group. And what they do is they collect new and used golf equipment, and they ship it to active duty troops and wounded veterans around the world. And I just thought it was really cool. It's an attorney up there who started it, and his name is Joseph Hanna. So congratulations to Mr. Hanna for the good work that he's doing. And I got to tell you, they have collected, I mean, just an incredible amount of golf balls and clubs, and you know, they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. And you know, just all for the love of the troops and wanting to give something back. So they often go into schools and they collect, you know, larger quantities of stuff to make the shipping a little bit easier. They also get donations to help defray the cost of shipping. Right now, they're working with 300 schools, and they're shipping product to 40 countries. So they only started back in 2008, so they've really come a long way. And I took a look at their website. I was very impressed with what they're up to. And if you would like to check it out and perhaps get involved and send some of your, clubs, and they take new, they take used, they take whatever, and some of the photos of the troops using the products, the clubs and hitting balls into nets and whatnot overseas is very, very cool. bunkersinbaghdad.com is the web address. Go check it out and help these guys out. They're doing a real good job. One last quick golf story. A past guest who we've had on the show, architect